Okay, thank you, Darcie, for joining me on Not Nosy, Just Curious podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm really excited to be here with you.
I am so grateful. Can you introduce yourself and give us a short description?
Yeah, sure. My name is Darcie Burtch. I am from Wisconsin. I am the podcast host of the School of Hard Knocks. I am also an NLP practitioner, success coach. I also do clinical hypnosis as a practitioner, and I'm a two-time best-selling author in the Empower Her anthologies.
Very impressive, young lady. Very
Oh, thank you.
impressive. Now, I was looking at that thing that had me so curious was your hypnosis therapy.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you become trained for that? And when you hear that word, you think right away, I'm in a deep sleep and I'm going to jump around and act like a clown. How do you prepare for that, and what's the training that involves?
Gosh, I'm so happy that you asked that question because that is the biggest misconception when it comes to this kind of clinical hypnosis. First of all, how you get trained to do it is a very dear friend of mine who lives in the same city as I is a master trainer practitioner. So she's gone through hundreds of hours to get the certification she has. For me, it was a 120-hour certification course that I finished in a week. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of practice. It was a lot of learning, reading, testing. You have to test out before you can graduate from it. And a lot of people think that this is, stand in the corner and bark like a chicken type of things, like
Right.
we see on TV or that people do at like different comedy clubs and things like that. And that's not what this is. You are very much aware of who you are, where you are, what you're doing. So if I were to say to you, well, Yvonne, let's go and rob a bank, you would either open your eyes and look at me like, what are you talking about? Or not even acknowledge it at all because you know in your mind that's not something you would want to do. So you are in complete control throughout everything that I do with hypnosis and NLP. I'm working with you. So we're doing it together.
So you're completely conscious the whole
Yes,
time, yet you're teaching different behaviors.
correct.
So how do you manipulate the conscious mind like that, Darcie?
Well, it's very interesting because it's not so much your conscious mind, it's more your subconscious. So our subconscious is literally recording all day long. We don't have to think about blinking. We don't have to think about breathing. Many times, I know for me, I don't know if you've experienced it, but I've driven somewhere and been like, whoa, I don't even remember like the complete drive and passing that place because our subconscious is kicking in and it's doing its job, which is to always keep us safe. So it's connecting the subconscious, which already knows what it is that we want and what our goals are and what our desires are, and just simply connecting it to the conscious mind. So we're more aware of what it is that we want to do and how we can do it.
So has this practice helped you become a better person by being aware of everything?
I wouldn't say it helped me be a better person, but it's helped me align with my life a lot better. It's helped me to not fall off of the rails when something is happening. I mean, the reason for the School of Hard Knocks podcast is because I've been through some hard stuff in my life, some really hard stuff, and never ever dealt with it properly. When you start learning tools that you're able to use to help you heal through things like pain, grief, sadness, hurt, anger, all of those things that nobody likes to be in. When we learn how to start to utilize the correct tools that we actually have within us, your life is going to shift. You're so much more calm in situations, you're rational in situations, you're utilizing the things that we have to prevent harm to ourselves. And a lot of us go down bad roads when things are hard and stressful and we're scared and we don't know what to do. This is the way to help people realign with themselves.
So then, Darcie, there is no there is no cause and effect, no action reaction. You manage to take a deep breath, push it back, and manage it properly,
Manage it properly,
not
correct.
bury it.
Yes, which is unfortunately what a lot of people do. And I mean, I was a very, very good This is what we do as humans. We have to keep moving. The world keeps moving. But there's big events that happen in a lot of our lives that we really need to consider working through these properly in order to regain control of our mental health. A lot of us are going through life in this clouded state because we're so fixated on a big loss that we experienced, a divorce, a child, a parent, a partner, all of these hard things. It can be a job, it can be anything. And if we don't work through it, it's like carrying around a backpack that's so heavy all of the time. And then life hits you with something else. And now you have more weight. And then, because life is going to keep hitting us. That's the thing. It doesn't just stop like, oh, Darcie had a really big event in her life. We're going to let her scathe through the rest of it. That is not going to ever happen in the history of ever. So we have to, for our own joy in this life, learn how to deal with the hard knocks of life properly so we can still coincide with the hard things, but still experience joy and happiness.
So, do you believe, Darcie, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger?
At this point, Yvonne, I should be able to lift a house.
Okay, all right. So there are coping skills. Let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to dismiss this or treat this very casual, and I'm not trying to be, I'm wondering, it's like mental illness, and I understand it's real beyond real, but it seems to be the flavor of the moment, and I'm not, there's no malice there, but it seems if there's a problem, mental illness comes into it right away. And I know this is a very serious illness, but I think they have casualized. Do you understand what I'm trying to say, Darcie? I think they have casualized it, and it's not that. It's a very serious condition.
Yeah, and I think why it's become kind of looked at the way that it has is because people who aren't seriously experiencing a mental illness, they're experiencing a hard time, are using the wrong verbiage.
That's my point.
That's what's going on, because I don't work with people who need therapy or counseling. That's not what I do. I can help you with anxious thoughts. I can help you realign your thoughts. But if you're somebody who is already meeting with a therapist, already meeting with a counselor, doing psychiatry, I cannot change a mental illness that you actually have. But if you're having anxious thoughts or anxious feelings, I can help with that.
So you think that can be topically worked through?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't been diagnosed with something and you're just assuming, like I have this condition or I have this, because, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Everybody feels like everything's a traumatic situation or a trigger. This has been over
Yes,
sensationalized for so long
right,
that it takes away from people who actually are genetically or mentally chemically experiencing these things.
right.
It's
That
it's
was
kind of like saying that you feel like you have a little lump on your breast or something, you must have breast cancer. Now I have it. That really takes away from the woman who really truly has it and is suffering through it, right? So
yeah,
that's the
that's
same thing, like to pretend or to say you assume that you have a mental illness, you may just be having a bad day or a bad week.
right. That's my point. It just seems to be like you're saying, just so overused, the mental illness. And it's a very serious condition. I mean, the people who have this genetically, they struggle,
Yes.
and not to be dismissed, but not to be treated casual, like you said. I mean, that was a great description for me too. I couldn't get those words in
Yeah.
place, but yeah, I found also I watched one of your live streams, and I found you to be very riveting and raw and very
Yeah.
transparent. You were talking about your husband Eric, and you didn't try to fluff it up or anything. And I just admired the honesty. Now, did you have to learn that? Because, as women, we don't treat each other as allies. I mean, we're so busy comparing. How did you manage to navigate to get to that point of rawness like that? Not even care if you're being judged. I mean, that's what we're so afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, especially as women, the biggest thing I can say is comparison is the biggest thief of joy. I give zero shits about what somebody thinks about me. I
But let
don't
me
care.
interrupt you right there, Darcie. You learned that.
I did. I did learn that. And I learned that from going through the school of hard knocks.
Okay.
My life has started out, my first memory starts at 4 years old, and it is of watching my dad almost take my mom's life. From the age of 4 until 16 years old, my dad was extremely abusive to myself, my 8 siblings, my mother, basically everybody. He was an alcoholic, he was a drug abuser. My life was not awesome as a child. At the age of 16 years old, my parents finally got divorced, and my mom decided that she wanted to date a man that was quite a bit younger than her, that did not have any interest in being with a woman who had 9 children, because that is how many children my parents have together. We are all, siblings like that. And she gave all of my siblings away to my dad's family. Now, my dad became the way that he was, yes, on his own accord, but also by the way that he was raised. So here, my mom hands off all of my siblings to be with this man. It does not work out for me. She kept me because I was 16 years old and old enough to take care of myself. And I ended up putting myself into the foster care system. It was the craziest thing when I walked into my social worker's room and said, "Put me into a foster care." She said, "I've never had a kid ask that before. Why are you asking that?" And I said, "Because I'm a little over a year away from being an adult and I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do. Nobody has taught me how to be an adult. How do you keep a job? How do you pay rent? How do you pay bills? How do you finance things? What do I do?" So she put me in a foster home. The first foster home was horrible. The mother was an alcoholic. The dad would say sexually inappropriate things to me. And then I found out upon arriving there that I was pregnant from the boy that I had been dating. Ended up getting really sick and being rushed to the hospital and rushed into emergency because I was having an ectopic pregnancy. After I lose that baby, unfortunately, I say something to my caseworker about this foster care not being good. They put me in a different foster care, and it was an incredible Leave It to Beaver family. Let's pray together, let's eat together, but that's not how I was raised, so it was extremely uncomfortable. So I emancipated myself at the age of 17. And I was walking to school and walking to 2 jobs and paying bills before I was old enough to vote. At the age of 19, I met my husband. He's 7 years older than I am, Eric. And we had alcohol problems at the beginning of our relationship, and we were aggressive to each other and had to learn how to cope with life in a healthy way. So I struggled. I mean, all the way. My whole life has been, after that, corporate burnout, corporate betrayal, friends turning their backs on me, just very hard things. And then in October of 2019, my dad became a survivor of a workplace shooting. Upon him being shot at work, the way that he fell, he unfortunately received a traumatic brain injury. After being in rehab for about 2 years, he came home to myself and my husband. We took care of him for 3 years and 8 months before I unfortunately found him deceased 6 months ago. You don't go through this kind of hard knock in your life and stay a timid person. You don't go through that kind of trauma in your life and allow people to treat you a certain way. I used to be a very non confrontational, I will enable everybody and run to everybody. But when I had to stand up and start to advocate for my dad, I thought, why have you not been advocating for yourself this whole time? You need to like not allow people to treat you the way that you've been allowing people to treat you. In the last year in particular is when I really started my self-love journey. Loving myself, saying no to certain things and not feeling bad about it, just taking care of me. So this is something that you don't have to go through that pile of trauma to have that kind of desire. You simply just need to learn how to love yourself. I mean, and that can happen in all different ways for all different women, men too, but that's when you go through that kind of level of trauma, it changes you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then age. I was turning 40 right before
I
my
was
dad
going
got
to ask
shot.
you that. I was like, can I ask, did you just turn, because 40 is a renaissance for women. It's
Yes.
a rebirth. It's a pound to my chest. And when you said, I don't say, I say no now, I thought, She must have just turned 40.
I turned 40 right before my dad was shot. Yeah,
I'm
actually a
sorry to hear
little
about your
little
dad.
over a month after, I should say, but I'm 46 now. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean in my 30s I started to like feel like I think I'm getting the world a little bit, and then when I turned 40, I was like I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. Like I just don't. You spend so much time being so concerned about everybody else and not yourself, and you wake up almost 50 years old with so many regrets of the things that you didn't do for yourself because you were so
Mhm.
busy doing for other people.
Right. Well, I like that you championed because that's the reality. You have to captain your own ship. That's all there is to it. You have to advocate for yourself, but you didn't use your background as an excuse.
No.
You didn't become what your background was. So often that's what happens. You become it. So, I mean, those are the things you managed. Despite your youth, you were still able to navigate with some sensibility, you know,
Yeah.
which, I mean, people use their tragedies as an excuse to behave badly.
Hmm.
And you can't, at some point, I don't know, Darcie, if you think, but you can't go through. My mother was a monster also, but you can't go through your life blaming your mother or your parents or their shortcomings for the person that you have become. You just
Yeah.
can't. They don't. They don't get all that airtime. You just have to move on.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know.
Well,
So
I knew when I knew for a long time that the life that I was living as a child was not what I wanted for myself. I knew that God had certain gifts for me, and I just didn't know how to unlock them until I started loving myself. I mean, I can walk into anybody's home and more than likely find at least three self help books. Everybody's got them. Everybody's got self help books. And that's awesome. That is so great. But if you are not loving yourself, you're not going to apply any of those learnings. It's just like somebody who wants to go on a diet and lose weight. This is why it's been so hard for me because loving myself, I don't think about we need to take care of ourselves and what we're putting in our body and moving our body. When you start loving yourself, you start caring a little bit more about what it is that you're doing to yourself. That's why self love has to be the first step in recovery of any type. I don't care what kind of addiction it is. My brother has been sober now for over 2 years, but he was addicted to meth for over 2 decades. And a
oh
lot of it he had blamed on our childhood. And
yes,
this is how I was raised. I said, I don't care about none of that. Listen, I'm 7 years older than you, buddy. And I'm not doing the stuff you're doing. You're using it as an excuse to do what it is that you're
right,
doing. So
right.
stop doing it. And it took him all the way up until 2 years ago to stop doing it and to love himself. Now he goes to the gym. He watches what he puts in his body. He goes to the church. He volunteers at the church. He's going to a daddy daughter dance tomorrow. Like my brother would have never. But
Yeah.
he loves himself now. This is why for men and women, loving yourself is not selfish. God gave us these bodies as a temple to love, not to disrespect, not to harm, not to hurt, but to love. So starting there, and it's not getting your hair done, it's not getting your nails done either.
Mhm.
We think, well, I just went and had this. That's maintenance.
Right.
That's maintenance. That is not self-love. Self-love is slow down.
Hmm.
Take a walk with nature. Take your ear pods out even, and listen to the birds and the trees and the connect with something aside from a device or graphic horrible things that we're watching and listening to. The news is just be informed but don't be engrossed. I mean that's another way to self-love yourself.
So self love, I mean, like you said, don't use your parents or whatever as an excuse. Use it as an example. But self love is something that you practice daily. That comes daily. I mean, even when I heard your voice on the messages, I thought this is somebody I really want to talk to. You're very magnetic like that, but you probably always haven't been.
Yeah, I used to be a really quiet, shy person. I mean, don't raise my hand in class. Everybody liked me. Like when I was in high school, I was friends with people who were, had parents that were doctors, people that were the grunge kids, people that were smoking weed outside, people that I didn't care. Humans are humans. If you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. So I've
It,
always attracted to people like that, but I'd be the one in the background, like, well, don't pick me, don't pick me. Now I'm like,
right,
put me on a stage somewhere. Because
right.
I have learned how to help myself, and I want to show other men and women how they can help themselves too.
Because this is a big step to put yourself face forward like this. I mean,
Yes.
even especially if you like to be in the background, it's very hard. Like for myself, this is big. I'm 71 and I thought, I'm going to do something. I don't care. This is just nice doing this. I have no illusions of grandeur. I don't want to become whatever. I just like doing this. But I, like yourself, would rather be in the background, would
Yeah.
rather just sit quietly and be whatever, mysterious. I'm just not one of those but this is a true stepping stone for me to step out of that,
Mm-hmm.
to force myself. So
Yeah.
when you have these classes, is it that you have these little seminars and whatnot?
The workshop.
The
Yes, the
workshop.
Trauma Toolbox Experience workshop.
Yeah. Do you encourage people to talk about what happened to them? And does talking help?
Yeah, I mean, talking is always going to help as long as you feel like you're in a safe place. I
Hmm.
mean, if you don't feel safe, you're not going to talk about the whole thing. You're going to skim over it, and then it's just kind of like a highlight of all of the bad stuff. We don't really start to hit the plane of changing until we hit bottom of the nitty gritty. What have we done? What have we been through? Like I can talk about the hard things that I've gone through without crying, without getting emotional, without my heart rate going up, because I've learned how to process through. The hardest thing in my life, I thought, was my dad being shot at work and having this brain injury. This man was my dad one way for 39 years of my life, and he was a rock star. I mean, he listened to all the like heavy metal music and had long hair, and just he would walk up on a stage like Motley Crue, and people would say, "Who's the new guy?" Like he just carried that charisma and that personality to a brain injury that completely changed him. And I had to learn how to adjust to who this man was. Well, then 6 months ago, when I found my dad, I did life-saving measures. I thought that I could save him, and it was already too late. I couldn't stop replaying that inside of my mind. So I actually had to create another tool for what I call my trauma toolbox. The trauma toolbox is something I've created in the course of the last 10 months of tools that have helped me stop playing a scary movie inside of my mind, help me stop going down a rabbit hole, stop me from engaging in activities that are not going to benefit myself. And I decided to put them all collectively together and start to actually share them with men and women. If you're having a moment, let's grab for a tool, and let's make it just a moment. Let's not make it an hour, a day, a weekend, a week, a month, a year. I mean, time is the only thing we can't get back. So whatever it is that we're going through in our life, the quicker that we learn how to reboot, I call it my reboot time. Like if you did listen to what I was talking about with Eric yesterday, I was kind of pissed off at first because I was like, "This
Yeah.
guy schedules a dentist appointment on a
Dentist
busy day
appointment.
for me,"
Yeah.
and I regulated myself in live time, and in 15 minutes or less, I'm back to being me because I don't want to waste that time being stuck. How is that changing anything? Being
So that's
angry is it's the same thing as like somebody who picks up a bottle and drinks. It doesn't take the problem away. In fact, when you wake up the next day, you still have the same problem, and now you probably feel like crap. It's the
right.
same thing when you're angry. You can be angry, but that's not going to fix the problem. In fact, it makes everything worse.
Right. But that's the thing. People don't want to stop and reflect, like, well, this isn't helping me and stop doing this. I mean, we're just become a society of entitled, anxious, angry people. And it becomes so contagious almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the, excuse me, sorry. It just is the dark cloud of the the mean people is so heavy that the happy people can't float to the top. You know what I'm saying, Darcie? It's just the society now is so mean and entitled and angry, even if you try to go for a drive anymore, you know? And you're right. You have to stop and go, so what, that guy drives like a nut. You have to just go, okay, well, he can go around me. But they don't want to go around you anymore. They want to intimidate you and they want to be aggressive. And what happened to us?
Well, who decides that you have to react to that situation? Whose
Oh,
decision is that?
good point.
You
Okay.
know, and the thing is that we have a hard time taking accountability for ourselves because we feel like it's going to be embarrassing. It's not. Taking accountability for your own actions and what you're doing shows strength. It shows character. You know, so if when someone's like dot dot dot, I don't have to engage. I cannot control I cannot control every circumstance, but I can always control my reaction or how I respond to it. We all
Right.
can. That's our problem. We don't just want to say, well, that guy must be having a bad day. Oh, look, he keeps trying to cut me off. I'm not going to make eye contact. I'm actually going to turn up my Fleetwood Mac a little bit louder. You know, I don't even see you, sir. You know,
Mhm.
like his problem's not your problem. Don't allow, that's what we do. We just allow other people's stuff to become our stuff. I've got enough stuff. I don't want anybody else. You keep your own stuff. I'm going to keep my own stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
that's how I choose. But again, it's having tools. Because, yeah, right now, a lot of people just react out of anger and aggression right away. Oh, you're going to cut me off. I'm going to cut you off. What does that do? What does it do? What is your outcome? Do you think that that person's going to pull over on the next ramp and say, I am so sorry that I did that. And after you cut me off, it put me in place? No, that's not going to be what happens.
No,
It's
yeah.
going to turn into a rage incident, and then someone's going to more than likely get hurt, even if it's just you for the rest of your day being ticked off because that's how your day started.
Do you think, Darcie, we don't say I'm sorry enough anymore?
Well, yeah, because we don't want to take accountability for our
Right.
own actions. That's the problem.
So nobody says sorry anymore,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And when you say it, doesn't have to be, can't be topical. It has to be, you have to mean it. Sorry.
And you should want to mean it, you know, and that's another part of self love. I mean, listen, we're all humans. That's what I said to you this morning when we couldn't get the link over. I said, oh, gee, Yvonne, what are you, a human or something?
Yeah, yeah, you sure did. You
Because
sure
we
did.
are human and it's
Right.
okay to make a mistake. But listen, take a lesson, learn from it, and don't do it again. And if it happens again, take a lesson and do it better the next time. Don't just say, well, this is just who I am. This is who my husband is. He's the Grinch. He's crabby all of the time. No, he's choosing to be the Grinch. You know, that's the problem. Or she's like, you know, Corilla DeVille and she just walks around with she chooses that life though. We choose our own life. It has nothing to do with genetic. This, you know, anger isn't like diabetes where it runs through your bloodline. Anger is something you can manage if you choose to. You can
Right.
choose to manage it. We just choose not to.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you just said because I hate this badge of honor that some people use. Well, I can't help it. I'm just honest. Well, that's not honesty. Your honesty is painful so often. You don't need to be honest like that. You can edit.
Yes.
I like that you say that because they wear that I can't help it, I'm just honest badge of honor when that doesn't have to be. You have to, like you're saying, choose to be kinder. You don't have to be, nobody asked for your honesty.
Mm-hmm.
It's not respected because it's mean. It's coming from a mean place, even though you want to give it the honesty title, you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, I agree with what you just said, the choices that we make, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also read your little empower her thing, and I thought that was very profound. Now, do you write quite often now?
I used to write all the time when I was younger. I actually realized that I could write poetry at about the age of 13 or 14. It
Mm-hmm.
was a really great way for me to express like the abuse and toxic environment that I was in. And then I started writing a novel when I was in my 20s. And then life lifed and bills had to get paid and you just kind of tuck it away. And then last July ish, last spring ish, I was asked if I would want to collaborate in this Empower Her book. And I thought, oh man, what would I even write about? Because this is supposed to be empowering stories. And I don't always feel super empowering. And then I thought, actually, this is a good time for me to talk a little bit about my past. I've been on social media now for a decade. I used to teach women how to apply makeup and skincare and all of these kind of things. So people always see me as this very happy. This is how you
Mm-hmm.
contour. This is how you do a cut crease. This is how you do brows. Now we're getting older, so let's not put powder under our eyes all the time. And so people saw me as this one way, and I thought they're probably all thinking, she must have been raised like in a really good home. She's so pleasant and graceful and all of this stuff. And I thought, you know what? I'm sick of wearing that. This has been hard work to be a person that I am, like how I am. So I said, yeah, I'll write it. And I opened it up by talking about my first memory when I was 4 years old and taking people through the journey of some of the hard things I've gone through in life. And it wasn't for any type of badge of honor. It wasn't to hurt my parents or my siblings. It was to lift this weight off of me. It was, this is me. This is part of me. I'm not embarrassed by it. Everything I've gone through in my life has brought me to this moment today and why I am the woman that I am. So I wear everything that I've gone through in my life, every stage, proudly. Because had I not experienced that, I don't know who I would be today.
So when you just, my phone. When you decided to write, did the words just come pouring out? I mean, were they there? Did you have to search for them? Or
Yeah, I had to do some searching because I was scared. I
okay.
mean, I didn't my dad with his brain injury, I knew that he wasn't going to have access to the book unless if I read it to him, as of which I did. Because even after my dad's brain injury, I still respected him the same. Even though I was his caregiver, he was still dad.
Hmm.
And I knew my mom was going to read it, and I knew she was going to be real pissed off. And I thought, well, I'm so sorry, but maybe if I would have been protected more as a child, I wouldn't have these things to write. So my husband and I went to a lake house retreat last July, and I brought my notebook with because I thought I'm going to sit outside, I'm just going to write, I'm going to complete it. And then this retreat was so nurturing to my soul. At 45 years old,
Oh,
at that time, I really was missing being nurtured and didn't even realize that. So I actually set the notebook down. I said, I'm going to absorb all of this weekend because my soul needs it. And I gave myself that time. We came back on a Sunday. Monday, my chapter had to be turned in on Tuesday.
oh,
Monday, I said, if I do not get this done this morning, I got to leave the whole entire house and go to like a coffee shop. I sat down and I could not believe the way this just poured out of my soul in such a beautiful, graceful way. Like when I completed it, it took me about 2 hours, I would say. I called Eric upstairs and I said, can I read this to you? And he said, yeah. And he stood there. And Eric and I have been together for a long time. We've been married for 21 years. August will be 27 years we've been together. He knows all of it, but it was having it read to him in this fashion. He was crying. He was
oh.
like, "Oh my gosh, Darce, like I love you so much. And it's so hard that my wife hearing this in this form that my wife endured all of that stuff." So I turned it in the day before it had to be turned in, and the very next day I started my podcast. It was like everything from that weekend, that nurturing was like, oh man, I got so many gifts that I could share with people, and I think I figured out how to do it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. To have that moment, that special moment, we
Yeah.
all looking, striving, trying to find that moment. And you had the moment and you appreciated the moment and you lived in the moment,
Yes.
which is so great. Well, Darcie, let's wrap this up. But in closing, something good, something real good from the gut.
Well, what I can tell
Really?
you is, life is hard and life is going to get continue to be hard. It is designed to challenge us. It is designed to put us through different bouts of challenges in our life, but you are stronger than that. You are stronger than that. And when you seriously take the time to love yourself, start using the tools that you actually need in order to accomplish joy and compassion and happiness in your life, these things that are designed to take you down won't. You stand so tall. I would be a fool to think that nothing else is going to happen in my life after losing my dad. I know that life is going to challenge me, but I have the right tools to keep me standing. Imagine that. If life keeps knocking you down, how are you ever getting up? You're
But
just
do
going to
you